Welcome to Torah on the Go. Whether you are walking your dog or on your Peloton, at work, taking a break, or just wanted to spend some time with us, the clergy at Valley Beth Shalom, we are happy that you're doing it. Welcome. I'm sitting here next to my partner, Rabbi Feinstein.
Welcome, welcome.
Hanukkah is about to begin.
Yay!
Presents.
Dreidels. Latkes. Sufganiyot.
What is your favorite part of Hanukkah?
Oh, everything. It's just great. It's a wonderful time of the year.
Are you more a latke guy or more a jelly donut guy?
Oh, I'm a latke guy.
Oh.
I am an Eastern European Jew.
That's fantastic.
Jelly donuts are also quite remarkable. I'm looking at how many hours on your Peloton or treadmill do you have to do in order to get to eat latkes and jelly donuts and get away with it?
Right. We celebrate these.
Why don't we have a holiday that eats celery? That's
Never.
what I want to know.
Never. It's so ironic. We celebrate this holiday where these strong, muscular Maccabee, heroes, and we do it by eating the most fattening foods possible.
Killing ourselves.
That's right. That's right. It's a dream for cardiologists everywhere.
My
Hanukkah.
God.
We're going to talk a little bit about the theme of this whole season is the book of Exodus. And in the book of Exodus, especially on Passover time, we know that there are extraordinary miracles that occur in the narrative of the redemption from Egypt.
Right.
And in this Hanukkah story, we talk about the miracles, al-Hanisim, on the miracles that occurred for our ancestors. Right around this time is the blessing that we say when we light the Hanukkah candles. But there's a difference in those kinds of miracles.
Yeah.
We use the same word for both stories, that there were miracles. But one set of miracles in the Exodus narrative are really concern God's breaking of natural law. Mm-hmm. It's God entering the world and turning back the sea, splitting the sea, causing darkness and death of the firstborn and backstage tour type special effects. Mm-hmm. And the other is the miracle of Jewish strength.
Yeah.
The miracle of asserting Jewish self-determination in this world against all of the odds. The Hanukkah story feels so much more modern than the Exodus story, while both of them feel so relevant in today's world.
Yeah, so let's unpack that, because I think that, and I want to put a warning. This is a trigger warning to everyone. We're about to destroy your holiday. We're about to demythologize the holiday. And I promise you before we're finished, we will give you back miracles. So just hang on for a second. There is a book in the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha is that set of books that were never included in our Hebrew Bible, but were preserved both by the Jewish and Catholic traditions. There's a book in the Apocrypha called the Book of Maccabees. It's not contemporaneous with the Maccabees, but very close. One theory is that Simon Maccabee's children wrote the book. And it tells the story of what happened, how the Greeks came, how they conquered the land, how they despoiled the temple, put an altar and a statue of Zeus in the Holy Temple of Jerusalem, how there was a civil war raised by the Maccabee brothers against the Greeks. They cleansed the temple. And that the miracle of Hanukkah in that story is, as you said, we beat a military force much more powerful than our own, and we reestablish the faithfulness of the Israelite people, the Jewish people, to the God of Israel. No mention of oil that lasted 8 days. In the book of Maccabees, it just ain't there. Also, no mention of presents, by the way, or latkes for that matter.
Or jelly donuts.
The story of the lights comes several hundred years later in the Talmud Shabbat. And because Hanukkah is not such a big deal, there's no Masechet, there's no section of the Talmud on Hilchos Hanukkah. What there is one little tiny section in the Talmud about Shabbat. And the argument in the Talmud is, what about these cheap candles? Can I use cheap candles for Shabbos? Right? And the question is, if they burn out during Shabbat, you'll want to relight them and you'll break the Sabbath. They say, well, what do I do with all these cheap candles if I can't use them? And the rabbi said, well, use them for Hanukkah. And the Talmud stops cold at that point and says, my Hanukkah. What's Hanukkah? And there's one paragraph. It said, the Maccabees conquered the Greeks. The Maccabees cleansed the temple of the idolatry, reestablished the worship of the God of Israel. And they wanted to light the menorah, the great candelabrum that stood in the temple or before the temple. But they needed a special kind of oil. The oil wasn't available. It took 8 days to find the oil. All they found was one little jar of oil, and that 1 day's worth of oil lasted 8 days. And so we have 8 days of Hanukkah. That story only comes in the Talmud 300 years later.
At least 300
300,
years
400
right,
years after the Hanukkah story. And that's the miracle that we were all taught in Hebrew school when we were kids. That you put the miracle, you light your menorah, you put it in the window, lefarsem et hanes, to let the world know of the miracle of the lights. Now, that's the story I learned in Hebrew school. Later on, as I got older, I realized, or I was taught, that story is a metaphor. The rabbis had experienced this horrendous destruction, first of the Temple of Jerusalem, and then some years later, when they revolted again, of the destruction of so much of Jewish life in ancient Israel. And they were holding on, and there were only a few of them. And so they were looking for a metaphor to communicate to the Jewish people that it only takes a few of us, with our deep faith in the God of Israel and our loyalty to Torah, to enlighten an entire dark world that is pressed upon us. So that the Hanukkah miracle was yes, the lights is a great story to tell kids, but for grown-ups, this question of a small minority in a great world of darkness, that's what the story is really about. We can be a very small group, but if we truly believe that we hold a truth, a deep spiritual truth, then we can survive in a world of great darkness, even in very dark times.
There was a beautiful teaching by a Hasidic Rabbi. I know you read him all the time, the Sfat Emet, who talks about the role of the shamas, right? Because we don't actually light each Hanukkah candle. We light one candle, and then that candle lights all the other candles.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about the role of the candle that lights all the other candles. That is what every Jewish person is supposed to be.
Very nice.
And so Hanukkah is a recognition. If you look at the Hanukkah lighting ceremony, is that it's a recognition that at the beginning we can influence one person, and then we can influence two people. We can light 2 candles, 3 candles, 4 candles, and by the end you see this community of candles standing together, all burning bright. Hanukkah is a recognition that it's up to us in so many ways to bring light into the world.
Yeah.
And the Exodus story, or the Haggadah, the Passover narrative, is almost the exact opposite.
Yeah.
It's about having trust and faith that God is with us in this world, and God will continue to redeem us and grant us this promise of possibility.
Yeah. So in this story, there's no splitting seas, no burning bushes, no sticks that turn into snakes. But in some ways, as you said, it's a much more sort of approachable miracle. It's the very fact that we're still here. The very fact that given all of the cultural circumstances and all of the horrendous political circumstances that we've lived under, that the Jewish people have continued to keep faith with this truth, with the great truths of our faith. I like to tell the stories. One of the stories I love to tell the kids is, 2 ways. Number one is, so the Hanukkah story we all know is Judah Maccabee goes into the temple, he cleanses the temple, he destroys the statue of Zeus, he reestablishes the worship of the God of Israel, and they only found one tiny jar of oil. Who hid it? Who put that jar of oil someplace, knowing that someday we would come back and find it? And that's the person, it's the cleaning lady. I'm quite convinced of this. It's an anonymous cleaning lady who saw the Greeks coming, who watched as the Greeks were despoiling the temple and turning it into a temple of Zeus, and who knew that one day her children or her children's children or their children would return to Torah, would return to the faith of the people of Israel. And so what she did was take a tiny jar of oil and hide it in a place that she knew the Greeks would never find it. But the next generation or the next generation of Jewish zealots would find it. And she's the real hero of Hanukkah. And just as that Hasidic miracle, that Hasidic story is, and so we do the same thing. We are either the ones who hide the oil for our children's children, or we're the ones that find it and share the light with our children and our children's children. But I don't know her name. I just want to thank her for her faith in our people.
Maybe there's a little addendum to that story, and that is she actually hid the little amount of oil, and she hid one jelly donut.
Yes.
But her son Shmulik took the jelly donut and ate it on their way out, and so all that was left was that's right. All that was left was the little container of oil.
You ate the donut. Then the other question is, so when I was a kid in Hebrew school, we had these European teachers, and they were horrendous teachers, but they were wonderful souls. And he asked us, he'd say, boys, in his wonderful accent, he'd say, he's what they call the klutz kasha. Mm-hmm. The klutz kasha is, if there was enough oil for one day and the oil lasted 8 days, then how many days was the miracle for? And the answer, of course, is, well, 7. There's 7 days when the oil shouldn't have burned, and yet it burned. That was the miracle. He says, so why do we light it on the first day? And here's something very profound. And this was a guy who had survived the Holocaust. And he looked at us and he said, because they had the courage to light it, even though they knew it wouldn't last. They had the courage to say, and yet I'm going to resist the darkness around me. And this is a Holocaust survivor teaching us, and we were all crying at this point. He had tears in his eyes. He said, sometimes you don't know what's coming next, but you just have to stand up and say, I'm going to act this out because I need to show that light can overcome darkness, that life can overcome death. And that's why we light the first night. And that's why the first night is a big deal in our family, because it's the night when we said they lit the lights anyway, not knowing what would come of it.
That's beautiful. Last year we were in, we had a VBS Maccabee mission that landed in Israel in December time, right after October 7th.
Horrendous time.
And the first night we lit the candles of the Hanukkah.
Right.
And it felt very different to light the lights in Israel. And it felt different we just heard the stories of all of these soldiers who come back and they carry with them PTSD in addition to all of the physical wounds that they carry. They carry emotional and mental wounds. Right. And then we stood together at this place called Daniel's Farm, and we lit the Hanukkah, and we ate sufganiyot, and we laughed about it, because at some point there can only be so much tears, and you have to believe that light is possible.
Yeah.
We light the Hanukkah at the darkest time of the year. So at the time when darkness comes, at the earliest moment of the day, we put a Hanukkah in the window to remind our neighbors, this is not forever. The darkness is not permanent. We have the ability to bring light into the world. I actually think it's one of the most profound moments in the Jewish year is lighting the Hanukkah.
Right.
We don't charge, we don't demand tickets for people to come see it. We don't charge. We don't raise money off of it. And we get this amazing, amazing tradition that our kids rush to be part of.
Yeah.
Rush to be part of. And in so many ways, I think it's the metaphor for how the Jewish tradition survives, is we develop traditions that the kids want to be part of. We develop traditions that people rush to join in the family, and it happens at home. It happens at home. Mm-hmm. And like so many other things, just like Shabbos, like everything, it happens at home. The Passover story is also told at home.
Mm-hmm.
It's also told at home.
Yeah.
And so these two great stories about miracles are told at home, and we gather together as families and we talk about miracles. And the ultimate miracle, of course, is that we're all together with each other in our homes, with our arms around each other, telling the story.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, the wonderful thing, again, in terms of a kasha, my teacher used to ask us is, so you light the Hanukkah candles and you know the bracha, right? Baruch atah Hashem, you thank, blessed is God. His presence fills the universe. Asher kitshanu mitzvotav etzivanu lahadlik ner shel Hanukkah, who has sanctified us with mitzvot and commanded us to light Hanukkah menorah. Wait a minute. Nowhere in the Torah are you commanded to light Hanukkah. I mean, you're commanded a lot of things in Torah, but you'll not find Hanukkah in Torah. And so the great question, I mean, he asked us as a kid, he says, like, what's the mitzvah? How can there be a mitzvah? So the technical answer is because the rabbis told us to light the Hanukkah menorah, and we're commanded to listen to the rabbis. But the bigger issue is what you said so beautifully, is that we are commanded never to give up hope. We are commanded never to accept the darkness as the last word. We are commanded to fight for the light and for God's presence in the world. We are commanded to hold tight to each other. These are the commandments of Hanukkah.
You had the greatest Hebrew school teacher in the history of the world.
No, he wasn't.
You had Rabbi Soloveitchik, or
No,
you had
no.
Rabbi Akiva, or something like that. Was
When he
teaching
wasn't whacking me with a stick. Yeah, there was a lot of wisdom there, but he wasn't whacking me with a stick.
Well, we hope that you enjoy some jelly donuts or latkes.
Presents. Wait, we got to talk about before you get off the Peloton.
You know.
What do you do for presents? I have a suggestion. What do you do for presents?
So we have gotten away from buying the kids kind of materialistic things that get thrown in the garbage a month later.
10 minutes later, right.
And it began years ago. This is a whole tangential story, but years ago, Blair turned to me and said, let's not do these presents that the kids throw out right away. Let's get the kids something meaningful. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, great. I think that's a great idea. And then she unched me. She said, let's get them a dog. Now, I didn't want a dog at all. I didn't have that, but that was the introduction. She knew how much against I was.
Wrigley was a Hanukkah present.
Wrigley was a Hanukkah present. Wrigley was a Hanukkah present.
The rabbi's family's dog.
And maybe our best Hanukkah present ever. Because,
it was a wonderful.
Because it engendered so much love. It opened the kids' hearts. It allowed us to see that the kids loved it. So Wrigley was a Hanukkah present.
Oh, so I have to wish Wrigley a happy Hanukkah when I see him.
Always. You know, Wrigley is from Amish country, Pennsylvania.
Is he?
Yeah, and went through the conversion program at Intro to Judaism. I mean,
studied
a lot, yes. But that's our greatest Hanukkah present.
We stumbled upon something with the same impulse. You know, the kids say, "What are you getting me?" You know, it's like, this isn't right. So one year we stumbled on something, and it turned out to be our family custom, which I recommend really highly. We alternate giving nights with getting nights.
That's beautiful.
So the first night of Hanukkah is a getting night. That's when the kids get the big present. Right? That's when the kid gets the game or the toy or the BMW. That's the first night, right? The second
I'd like
night,
to be one of your kids if BMW was on the table. That's right.
The second night, we take new toys that we've wrapped up, and we drop them off at one of the stations. We've gone to the Valley Shelter. There's a homeless shelter in the community. We've dropped them off at the Jewish Family Service has a family violence center. You can't go to the place, but you can go to the office. And we did this with the kids. We took the kids with us, and on the car, we explained to them that there are people who live among us who don't have a home. We want to make sure they have a really nice holiday. We're bringing them presents. So the kids participated. Third night, kids got the presents from their grandparents, right? Fourth night, we took clothes out of the closets that don't fit anymore, dropped them off, blankets for the homeless people,
wonderful.
And alternated giving nights and getting nights, food for the food bank, books for the library, books for the schools that don't have the kind of books that we all own, you know, and so the kids got presents, but they also learned how to give. And if you ask my kids today, they will tell you that the giving nights were so much better than the getting nights. They remember the faces of children at the shelter. They remember the people that took our books from the donation center and the library. And they remember those nights as a very powerful night and we would connect that with lighting lights and say, this is our job, is to light lights. Don't you see what we just did?
It's beautiful. At VBS, we have a chesed project every year.
Yep.
It's over by the time that you've heard this podcast, but it's for next year for you to participate in Hanukkah Angels.
Yeah.
And then we take our kids shopping for gifts for families with children who will not receive gifts.
Yeah.
For all sorts of reasons.
Right.
And it's powerful to walk through a store with the kids, and the kids say, you know, Ruthie or whatever child who's written the letter, said that she would love an iPad.
Yeah.
Let's buy her what she needs, because the kids internalize that we can help provide for other Jewish children.
What we can recommend, and I think this is important, and it's apropos of your previous experience. There are charities now, and we can help guide them. There are tens of thousands of Israeli families who were displaced from their homes, and those kids may or may not get anything Hanukkah because they're living in hotels, they're living in hostels, they're living, in extended families, apartments, and homes. They're charities that are providing for those kids.
That's right. One of those businesses was actually at our Hanukkah boutique. It's called Essek,
Yeah.
and it uses local artisans in Israel to provide these kind of box gifts to displaced families. And we'll have it on our website, and we would so appreciate it if you helped participate and support local Israeli artisans in the creation of these boxes for displaced families. It helps these families, it helps the economies, and it helps provide them with objects, with ritual objects like Shabbos candelabras or Chanukiahs, things that they need that they weren't able to take with them.
Right. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So once again, on the coldest, darkest night of the year, we light lights wherever we can. And jelly donuts.
And we eat fattening foods.
Okay, jelly
And
donuts.
that's how we keep the Jewish tradition alive.
Amen.
Happy Hanukkah, everybody. Chag Sameach.
Stay on that Peloton. Hanukkah's coming.